So I'm really excited for that show because I love the video game series. I am apparently prone to a lot of technical issues today, so please bear with. It can only get better. In other news, so that was pretty much it for the Uncharted series. The AI uprising begins, apparently, as director Tony Kaye is casting a robot, an actual real life robot, as the lead in his next film. And this is a really, really weird headline. Like, I've come across this, I think, on Slash Film. I can't remember. Now, this really reads ridiculous, and I really think that this is a hoax, or the guy is on drugs, or I have no idea. He broke out of an insane asylum. I have no clue. This really reads like something that you need to take all the drugs that are available all at the same time. So there's a new, to give you some understanding of this, there's a new film coming out later this year called Firstborn. Yeah, this and according to Deadline, Tony Kaye wants a robot to play the lead character in his new film Secondborn, which is supposed to be a sequel to this indie comedy called Firstborn, which hasn't even been released yet. It's coming out later this year. And the funny thing is, Firstborn is not even his movie. It's directed by a guy called Ali Adjani, and it's starring Val Kilmer, Tom Berenger, Greg Grunberg, and a lot of other people. And Firstborn apparently centers on a young married couple. There's an Iranian-born Ben played by a guy called Safai, and American Kate, and they have a complicated first pregnancy that forces them and their extended family from different backgrounds to find common ground for the sake of the baby. That sounds quite interesting, and apparently it's an indie film and it's supposed to be a comedy, so cool, right? However, Tony Kaye wants to now make a sequel to this, a sequel to a film that is not his, a sequel to a film that has not come out yet, and on top of that, he wants a robot to play the lead, and apparently the films have nothing whatsoever to do with robots. So is he like trying to prove a point that a robot can be an actor or something like that? It's really, really bizarre to me. This entire thing, I mean, Deadline was reporting on this, right? And Slash Film picked it up, and this is where I read it, and I'm like, this sounds like such a hoax. But both of these outlets, I kind of usually trust with the stuff that they put out. So it's like, is that just some weird ass fucked up promo for Firstborn because it's an indie film? It's supposed to be a comedy, so I don't know. It just sounds absolutely bonkers to me. This guy wants to cast an actual robot who is supposed to learn different acting techniques in order to be able to pull this off for the film. And he wants this robot to be the lead in his new film, which is a sequel to a film that's not his and has got nothing to do with him whatsoever, and is also a sequel to a film that's not even out yet. What the actual fuck is going on? I have no idea. So according to Deadline, Kaye is aiming to cast a real robot who will be trained in different acting methods and techniques. The idea, which originated from Kaye and producer Sam Cozy, I have no idea who he is to forego the use of computer generated effects in favor of a physical AI robot as an actor, who they are hoping will also get SAG recognition. It's like, what are you smoking? Okay. I assume that men with white jackets are approaching both of these individuals. What the actual heck is going on? I just thought it's like, this is so weird and bonkers. I'm just going to share that with you, just putting it out there. What do you think about that? It's like there's quite a lot of lobbying going on to have actors who are motion capture artists be recognized for awards, and especially by the Academy. Most notably, someone who everyone knows, Andy Serkis, who played Gollum and who played Caesar and a lot of other characters. Because this guy, he is acting, he is putting in a performance. Just because Weta or digital artists are putting in someone else's face doesn't mean that his performance is not there, right? Without his performance, there would be nothing. And there's this whole thing about that are trying to lobby for that, and I'm also totally for it because it is an actor's performance, so this needs to be recognized. just like a lot of other things, like stunt people are also lobbying for there should be like a stunt Oscar or stunt awards and stuff. I think they have like their whole separate stuff, but they should definitely be credited for that. You know, they should get recognition for that. Obviously, they're being credited, but they should get recognition for the work that they do. And without them, this work, like the entire movie, basically would not exist. And that's, I think, fair play to them. They should definitely get recognized for that and get awards for that as well. I'm not entirely sure how I would work that out, but you know, I I get the sentiment and I'm totally there with them. Um, but this is obviously taking it a bit further, and in recent years, this discussion has arisen quite a lot, especially with certain films that have come out where we are putting someone's likeness over someone else's face. Like I think that's what they did in Rogue One at the end, where Princess Leia is showing up. And it looked a bit weird, but they are ironing it out better and better. And it's the same thing. I mean, all the stuff that we can do with CGI nowadays. I was just thinking of the Ant-Man sequel, where you have 3 different actors, I think, who are being made younger, like decades and decades younger than they actually currently are. And it's starting to look normal, like looking photorealistic. Like you're not going like, you think it's weird because you know that this person is actually of a different age. But if you didn't know, it's like you would go, it's like there's nothing wrong with that, right? So CGI is going tremendously well, and this whole thing is like, well, if we scan someone's likeness into the computer, can't we just animate them to do whatever we want? Where they basically say, you as an actor, you will be paid once to get your entire body, your entire likeness scanned into the computer, so that the animators can just animate your likeness however they want, and you can then act however they want you to, even past your death, basically. But also takes agency away from actors, obviously. So it's quite an interesting discussion. It's like where do we stop with the technology and stuff? So this idea with actually having a robot do something is just an even more far flung out idea, but I guess it was just around the corner, right? In less, well, in also quite bonkers news, but definitely not laugh out loud funny, but more like, I can't believe you actually did that. It's now official. The hate mongers have won. I'm sorry to say, fellow fans and creatives, James Gunn won't be hired back to direct Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The haters have won, the guys that have started this ginormous backlash against him on the internet, the people that have dug out these old tweets that have started it all, they have gotten what they wanted, because Disney will not reinstate James Gunn as the director and writer of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So it looks like Disney and Marvel are standing by their decision not to reinstate him. And apparently this comes after a meeting that took place with James Gunn himself and Walt Disney Studios chairman Alan Horn. So Variety is reporting that Disney and Marvel were making this difficult decision. James Gunn and his representatives from United Talent Agency, who are his agents, made quite a push for the filmmaker to have a second chance, and that's why Alan Horn agreed to have a meeting to discuss the possibility of potentially rehiring him. Now, there may never have been real hope to get him rehired, but it was described as more of like a courtesy meeting, because obviously for years and years and years these guys have been working together. Everything was quite civil and professional. However, now Marvel and Disney looks like will have to butt heads together and try and find a new director, because after this meeting they still upheld the decision. And obviously Kevin Feige from Marvel, he was quite adamant he wanted James Gunn reinstated, but I assume they had some, you know, powwow with Disney, and they were like, no, we can't do that. Now it's I'm really appalled by this, because of the message that it sends, obviously. Given the last few weeks, and I've been talking really openly about this, and I think last week I had a rant about it as well on the show, in case you were watching. But we have people who are actually physical abusers and sexual abusers and harassers and all of that stuff, who are still working with big studios. And the one that was most prominently on my mind was Johnny Depp, because currently the trailer for Fantastic Beasts 2 is running left, right, and center, right? And he's obviously in that. It's a Warner Brothers production, but considering what the actual content is of Fantastic Beasts, it's family entertainment, and he is someone who physically abused his now ex-wife. And this is perfectly fine. You know, people are still working with him and he's headlining things, and it's just, yeah, we don't have a problem with that. However, we have a problem with James Gunn because he was tweeting a bunch of tweets about 10 years ago. He was saying things. He didn't even do things. He was saying things. He never physically assaulted someone. He never sexually assaulted someone or raped someone or did anything onto that matter. He just made some really questionable and really shitty bad jokes. And the funny thing is that in the last 10 years, this man has actually evolved and now realizes and now knows that that was not okay. But he's standing by who he was 10 years ago because that's his history. That's how he grew, right? Which is why that shit was still on his Twitter. And some people dug it up, and now he's paying, like, he's suffering the consequences for it, which is like, fair enough, you should suffer consequences, fine. However, the funny thing is that when Marvel hired him and Disney hired him when he did the first Guardians, these tweets already existed. For the Guardians 2, these tweets already existed. And if you want to work with someone, I'm pretty sure you do some background checks on them, don't you? Especially if you're the mouse. You know, this whole family-friendly entertainment shtick. You would check whether someone has some dark shit in their past, you'd think, right? So they were perfectly fine with him on Guardians 1 and Guardians 2. And now all of a sudden this has come out and they're like, oh my god, we need to get rid of him because he said these horrible things. What are we going to look like as a production company? Do you know what, Disney? Because you really made this lame ass decision, in like ad hoc decision, spur of the moment, panic attack, whatever it was, the outcome of that is so much worse than anyone ever going like, oh my god, I can't believe they're employing someone who tweeted something horrible 10 years ago. I'm not sure that people are giving Warner Brothers a lot of shit about employing Johnny Depp. And he did something far, far worse because he actually did something in person to another person. And yet Disney is firing someone and sticking with the firing of someone who just said something on the fucking internet about 10 years ago. It is so stupid and it sends the wrong message, and I'm really concerned about that because it's not just that we're not, like, we're being shitty to someone because of some crap that he did 10 years ago, right? We're not taking into account the context. We're not taking into account that person has changed, and this person apparently has changed. All the stuff that he spouts on Twitter now, all the stuff that he says in person is so very, very different from 10 years ago. And you need to keep that into account, I think. But what I find even more worrying, that we're not taking into account that a person might have changed and evolved, is that Disney is now basically giving, what's the word? It's like the first of potentially many cases where the hate mongers are winning. They are indeed getting the results that they were aiming for with their harassment and everything they were doing on the internet. They were trying to badmouth someone who they didn't agree with. And what they did worked, because Disney did exactly what they wanted. And even now we've given Disney another chance to go, like, look, that might have been a stupid decision, and I know you were potentially panicking because of the current climate, but you could potentially kind of like backtrack a bit on that. That would have been perfectly fine, right? They stuck with it. So they kind of made that decision with a thought through process a second time. And they stuck with it. Basically validating all the shit that the hate mongers were trying to do. So a win for the haters and a big, big loss for the non-haters, for the positive people, for people that are changing, you know, people who are changing from being ignorant idiots that spout crap on the internet to being a bit more thoughtful and actually learning from stuff, which is James Gunn, because he's no longer the person that spouts the shit that he spouted 10 years ago. Disney, you're going in the wrong direction. Unless you're actually supporting all these haters on the internet, because then you've done exactly the right thing, supporting those fuckers. Fuck off, haters. We can't support them. This is like, America doesn't, negotiate with terrorists. Well, Disney, you've just done what the terrorists wanted. You've done it. You fired the guy. He's a good guy. And you fired him. While other studios are employing people that should be fired. It's not sending the right message. Someone seriously just... Disney, you just kicked off an avalanche, and I think this is going to happen more and more, and we need people that actually can kind of like look through the fog and realize what that shit was aiming for and not fall for it. But enough of that now. I do not agree with Disney's decision. I think it's absolutely stupid what they've done. They're sending the wrong message, and they probably think they're doing the right thing, which is what, a lot of people do. But it's very, very unfortunate. Now, on to happier news. Well, sort of happy. New mega, super, mega awesome film, summer blockbuster in the last throes of summer. The Meg overperforms at the box office. Opens larger than Ready Player One and Rampage. So The Meg came out last Friday, I think it was, surprised the box office experts by having a much larger opening weekend than anyone projected. The movie opened larger than some of the more anticipated titles from earlier this year. So according to Forbes, The Meg has pulled down an estimated $44.5 million in the US just this weekend. The Meg had such a surprisingly good opening weekend, it ended up surpassing other celebrated debuts by Spielberg, like with Ready Player One and Rampage, from the spring, and also other summer hits like Ocean's 8 and The Equalizer 2. The Meg landed another $97 million in international markets. Hello, that's us. Including a massive $50 million just from China. And I'm not surprised. I went to see The Meg earlier today. It's very, very Chinese, that film. There's a lot of Chinese people in it. Parts of it are taking place in China and surroundings of China. It's basically a Chinese co-production, what the Meg is. So I'm not surprised. It's going to be a huge blockbuster. It is a huge blockbuster. It's going to rake in lots and lots of money. I think it cost like $150 million to make, which is quite a lot. But it sounds like they already got that in just with the opening weekend, which is fantastic. And with that, I present to you The Meg. And seriously, like, Asian cinema goers, they get like the coolest posters. Like the coolest posters I found for The Meg, they all had like Chinese or Japanese writing. It's so fucking cool. So I finally went to see this. I was really sad that I couldn't watch it last week. So you had to wait a bit, unfortunately. But I finally managed to watch it. And in case you didn't know, I'm a huge shark fan. Not fan of sharks themselves, but shark movie fan. So this is definitely right up my alley. I'm really excited for that. I also like Jason Statham. I think he's a really, really charismatic dude. So seeing him headlining something again is really great. And as a little side note, we also get Ruby Rose in this, which is kind of cool. So let me tell you quickly, just in case you don't know, what The Meg is actually about, okay? So the official synopsis reads, a massive creature attacks a deep-sea submersible, leaving it disabled and trapping the crew at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. With time running out, rescue diver Jonas Taylor, Statham, must save the crew and the ocean itself from an unimaginable threat. A 75-foot-long prehistoric shark known as the Megalodon, also known the Meg, because we don't like long words. It's apparently based on a novel, which I've never read, Meg, a novel of deep terror by Steve Alton. And basically the premise doesn't matter. We know there's a big-ass fucking shark coming up, and we're trying to not get eaten. That's like the story of every shark movie ever. There's a big shark, and we're trying to survive. And then we'll just see how we go about that. And I really like this one because I like anything to do with like the ocean, open water and stuff. It reminded me a bit of Deep Blue Sea, if you've never seen that. I know a lot of people are hating on that movie. It's basically another shark movie. Sharks are intelligent and made even more intelligent in Deep Blue Sea because we thought that that's a good idea. But yeah, I like Deep Blue Sea and I like Jaws, and like obviously Jaws, the first one's the best one, but you know, I've seen all the Jaws things, and anything to do with like open water and catastrophe. I really like, I really dig it. Especially when there's some kind of like weird ass creature, and it's usually a shark or I don't know, maybe an octopus or something, but